Hello, beautiful people of the internet. Welcome
On
back
that?
to the Games and Culture Podcast, episode 24. As I looked it up, because Nick tried to steer me astray and say it was episode 25, and I almost believed him. And then I was like,
It
no,
was a guess, though. It was a guess. I wasn't.
I shouldn't. Well, it's been a light couple weeks for news, so we thought we'd do something a little bit different this time around. We're going to be doing a tier list of video game publishers based on their 2024s. We're going to try to stick it to just the games because next episode we are going to do a retrospective of the whole year, the good and the bad. So we're going to try to stick it to just the games released this year and kind of sales around those games. So I'm sure that we'll get into a little bit of conversation about events that happened last year, but we're going to try to stick it to just the games. Okay. So you will not be seeing Sony at the top of this list because of Concord, and you will absolutely be seeing Ubisoft at the bottom of this list because of the awful year that they had. That's why our bottom tier is the Ubisoft tier, because nobody really had a bad as bad of a year as Ubisoft. So they're our bottom. So why don't we start there with Ubisoft? Games that they released this year: X Defiant, Star Wars Outlaws, um, Rogue Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Skull and Bones, um, just the latest Just Dance game, and then they had that NFT game that has already pretty much gone belly up. So really rough year from Ubisoft. X Defiant already closing down. Skull and Bones didn't impress anybody.
No.
They
Assassin's Creed.
flubbed a Star Wars game that which should be free money essentially.
Assassin's Creed's coming out next year. Well, actually, now
Assassin's
this
Creed got delayed out
this
of
year.
this year. Yep.
That actually is into this year now.
Well, yeah,
Um,
yeah, into 2025. Yes.
um, I mean, now they're looking for a buyer. Like things just
Yes.
were. It was that of any publisher this year got the short end of the stick. It was Ubisoft. I don't think there was Did they have anything go right for them this year?
So, Prince of Persia: and The Lost Crown reviewed really well. That's what started off their year. It reviewed really well in like the mid 80s on Metacritic and OpenCritic, and it sold approximately, I think it was like 5 million copies, but that just wasn't enough for Ubisoft. This was a
Which
smaller team. Ubisoft Montpellier did this one. It was a smaller game. It was a Metroidvania based on set in the Prince of Persia mythos, but they for some reason had such lofty expectations of it that
no,
it didn't meet those expectations, and so
no.
to the point where they took we reported on this, they took the staff from Montpellier and put them on other projects instead of greenlighting a sequel to Lost Crown.
Say, and no Metroid game has ever sold 5 million copies. So why did they have that lofty expectations for it? I mean, they could have had a bright spot, but they themselves turned into a down spot. It's like
Yeah,
geez,
I have no idea why their expectations were so long. The Rogue Prince of Persia, that's a roguelike based on Prince of Persia, no affiliation to Lost Crown. Reviewers liked what they had from that. It was a little bare bones, but most people liked the early access release of that. So I think that two two Prince of Persia bright spots. But I mean, their flops were huge. X Defiant, supposedly Call of Duty killer. It went well right out of the gate because it released during the summertime, but it struggled to hold players. Skull and Bones was an unmitigated disaster. Um, Most people giving it fives and sixes out of tens for reviews, not really having any content. Definitely not quadruple A, as uh,
ooh.
as the CEO of Ubisoft said it would be. And
I
then
know
I
that
mean
game
I
costs
think
a
the
fuck ton to make.
hit my camera.
Ooh,
I think the biggest disaster was Star Wars Outlaws. It may
yeah,
have not been the biggest monetary disaster, but how does a Star Wars game not sell well?
by turning into Ubisoft slop.
I mean,
Because I
yeah,
mean and that's also a thing Ubisoft they're gonna need to address this like as soon as possible. because the fact that I just said the phrase Ubisoft slop, like that's just what they are now. I said it earlier in the year, well, last year, that they're the kings of mid,
Yeah.
and most people look at them that way. I'm somewhat looking forward to Assassin's Creed Shadows, but I'm probably not gonna pick it up at launch because the thing's gonna go on sale super quick. And honestly, I know what to my expectations for it.
Yep.
So
It's also coming
I
out in a super crowded month. February is crazy.
mhm.
Um, two heavy hitters from Sega and Capcom, Yakuza, Pirate Yakuza, Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza, and Monster Hunter Wilds. I mean, plus another RPG in that same space, Avowed. Like I don't think I don't think Assassin's Creed's gonna do um what Ubisoft needs it to do. I think acquisition seems like Tencent's the one that's sniffing around. I think acquisition by Tencent is all but assured at this point because
Oh yeah.
they're not going to have any enough capital rolling in.
No, I mean it's their own fault. Again, the fact that they have that reputation is entirely on them.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. My imagining is if Tencent buys them, they're not going to just like fully absorb Ubisoft in terms of like Ubisoft doesn't exist anymore. They're all not part
Oh
of
yeah.
Tencent. The Ubisoft name will still exist, but they're going to have to change a lot of what they are.
Well, one of the determining factors of being acquired is that the Guillemot family stays in control. So I don't think anybody's going to buy them if that's the stipulation because the Guillemots have proven that they can't do it. So
That would be one of the first things I bought the company. Would be like, no, you guys got to go.
yeah,
You guys ran this company to the ground. I'm gonna try and fix it.
yes,
But
exactly. So Ubisoft, let's go towards a top end publisher. Who do you think fits into like an A or B slot? We are working towards consensus on this. We're not doing our own rankings like we do with a lot of other things. We're gonna reach a consensus. So these
okay.
will be debated. Um,
So what tier you want to go for? Want to
let's
go
go
B?
for a solid B tier.
Okay, B
Like who do you
tier.
think's in B tier? You think Nintendo's a B tier?
They didn't have a whole
Okay.
lot going on this year. I
Okay.
mean, we
All
can we.
right.
Can, I mean, at this point, probably best for us is kind of randomly pick uh a publisher and try and discuss where they go.
Yeah, fair enough.
Uh, but I mean, I don't see Nintendo this year really proved that we need to switch too, and we're probably gonna get it,
Yes.
this year. But there wasn't a whole lot of heavy hitters from them this
I
year,
mean, that's
honestly. I
fair.
mean,
So,
they're-
Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Mario and Luigi Brothership, another Code Recollection was Nintendo published, Princess Peach Showtime, World of Goo 2, Mario Party Jamboree, um, that ocean one, I can't remember its name, but Endless Ocean Luminous was also published by them. Um, so yeah,
I
that
mean,
was
they didn't have a bad year. They just had a lot of smaller stuff as they're just kind of landing the airplane that is the Switch. So
yes.
nothing really to me that pushes them into an A or S tier. I mean, they didn't even have a game nominated for the Game Awards, and that and it wasn't a case of them getting gypped. Like they just didn't have one. I would say would be deserving of
Luigi's
that.
Mansion 2 also came out this year.
Yeah, a smaller title as a remake. So nothing again. I'm just putting in B just because it was just kind of a very quiet average year. So to me, B is they didn't do anything much.
I
Almost
mean,
an
that's fair.
unnotable ranking.
That's fair. I'm okay with putting them in B. I think I'm just a little harsher on them because of them fucking up Brothership.
Yeah, Brothership was probably
That's
one of the worst ones.
that's
I
kind
mean,
of where my thought process is. So you have you have the you have the I lost my train of thought 'cause I'm typing. You have the kind of bungling of Brothership, but then you have like the performance issues from Echoes of Wisdom and Princess Priest Showtime and stuff, and I'm just like, man, it's getting real hard.
And I mean, that's
Uh,
what I said. If because I mean, I feel like the missteps are because they didn't really have anything Super Bowl Broship. I won't even call Broship that bad. It's just kind of so that's why, but like, because enough, the releases were pretty steady enough, and they were good enough to, I think, to justify an A. But the performance issues and Mario and Luigi Brothership, I think, take them down to a B, and just kind of keep it at them as almost at a neutral position. Because they're at this point, they're gearing up for Switch 2.
yes.
Um, so I mean, I would have bet if we do this video next year, Nintendo would probably be an S tier. So this is very much like in a sports kind of reality, a rebuilding year, kind of a preparation for another year type of system. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like I said, I think I'm just a little bit harsher on them just because of some of you're right. The Switch is just she's an old gal now. It's time to put her out to pasture.
I know. I will say this: depending on what they release, if for some fucking reason the Switch 2 does not come out this year, I'm gonna be mean about it. They're going D tier if that hasn't happened.
Yeah, it has to happen.
Yeah, it has to happen this year. Like, there's no more. Like, I still think it should have released last year, but they probably have some other things that they're sleeve. Want to wait for it? Fine. No more wait. This gotta do this year, man. The
Yeah,
Switch cannot do another year.
it's coughing up blood right now.
Yeah.
Let's
So I
do
think
one that I think you'll be pretty high on. Let's do Bandai Namco next.
okay.
Bandai Namco, pretty big year from them, but they did put out some stinkers. You had Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, Tekken 8, and the Elden Ring DLC being some of the biggest highlights. You also had some weird ones like the Spy Cross Anya Operation Memories game, which was like weird. It's like a mini game collection. You had Death Note Killer Within, which was weirdly enough an Among Us clone. And then you had the worst rated game of the year being the Jujutsu Kaisen Curse Clash game. So, with some other ones like Sandland and Gundam Breaker kind of rounding out the year. Sword Art Online is a new Fractured Daydream.
I'm thinking A tier for him.
You thinking A tier? They have the worst rated game of the year.
Correct. Correct. Does anyone give a shit about arena fighters though? Like, genuinely, we're gonna weigh it that heavily? Like, this is kind of par for the course. They also, they have the worst rated. They also have the best rated with Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree.
That is an excellent point. That is an excellent point. That is an excellent
So
point.
they're heavy hitter. Where it counted, Tekken, Elden Ring, and Dragon Ball, where it counted, they hit it out of the park.
Yes.
So I can't really. I'm not gonna hold JJK. Like, that's probably why I want to put him in S tier is because of JJK. But I ain't gonna go lower than that just because no one cares about those type of arena fires unless you're Dragon Ball and are going balls to the wall like Sparking Zero. No one gives a shit.
Yeah, I definitely don't think they deserve to be in S tier just because of kind of the
But
slop that they pushed out. But
yeah,
I will concede the three biggest hitters being Shadows of the Erd Tree, Tekken 8, Sparking Zero, all landed with zero issues for the most part, and we're all really high selling games. So I think I'd have to agree with you that A tier is where they should land, but they really need to work on the consistency of their anime catalog. Because this year also had them releasing the Demon Slayer Mario Party clone too, which was also terrible.
yeah, that's the thing is, I mean, this is an issue with anime games in general. Unless you're
But
Dragon
well,
Ball,
most of them come from Bandai Namco.
yeah, unless you're Dragon Ball, you're getting a thing of slop. And that does need to be fixed because there's franchises that deserve better.
Yeah.
Um, JJK, One Piece being among them. So, but because those slot games are just so minute to begin with, it's not a big as to me. JJK Curse Clash being crap isn't as big as egg on their face as Skull and Bones is on Ubisoft's face.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I think Bandai Namco landed an A is a pretty good one. Let's just do Capcom since it's the biggest logo. Capcom published this year Kinitsugami Path of the Goddess, the Ace Attorney Investigations ports to the here in the West, Dragon's Dogma 2, Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Game Collection, Dead Rising Deluxe Remastered, and they the HD port of Monster Hunter Stories, the first one. So a lighter year from Capcom because we have gigantic games coming from them next year. Yeah, I was gonna also say B. I was gonna, as
Uh,
much as I love Monster Hunter Stories and Ace Attorney
and these
Investigations.
are sports. These are sports.
Yeah, they're
Like,
just ports.
yeah, they're just ports. I ain't gonna give you. I ain't gonna. They're not all. None of the ports are bad. They didn't have anything bad. It's just I'm not
No,
gonna give you S tier off of ports.
yeah. And so
Um,
if you're looking at the original releases, of which there are only two, Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess, and Dragon's Dogma, both reviewed really well, and
yeah.
Dragon's Dogma 2 sold really well. I don't think a whole lot of people bought Kunitsugami, um, but
I mean, I don't think them having a B type of year is a big deal. 'Cause, I mean, let's be real. 2023 was S
yeah,
tier for them.
yeah,
Like,
that was a S year for them last year,
yeah. So,
and next
and
year
this,
looks to be another
yeah,
S year.
yeah, they have Monster Hunter Wild, and they don't. They tend to announce and get games, Resident Evil games, and release them pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't doubt RE9 might come out this year.
yeah,
Or something else. But I think they'll probably have more up their sleeve besides just Monster Hunter this year.
yeah. Oh, for sure.
But yeah, having a small gap year in between 23 and 25, that's fine. Uh, this is not a very worrisome breaking for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good spot for them to land in. Let's do another bad one. Let's do WB. So WB this year obviously had Suicide Squad. And that was pretty much it.
They
uh
re-released Multiverses.
yes, they re-released Multiverses. Um they also had the I think the Harry Potter Quidditch Champions also came out this year.
They also canceled Mortal Kombat 1's DLC.
Yep. Batman Arkham Shadow, the VR game.
I heard that was pretty well good.
Yeah.
One win is a VR game. Oh
Yep.
man, we might.
Yeah. I'm thinking they go in F tier.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
They're hanging out with Ubisoft at the.
Yes. Yeah, they're hanging out with Ubisoft down there for sure. I mean, you can't put in the words the unmitigated loss of Suicide Squad. They're already stopping um development on it after this last season that they're doing. I will say them putting a single player mode in there to keep the game alive for people that want to play it and give it a shot is good. So I mean, like a little bit of good faith there from
Yeah.
Rocksteady, but like, oh, have the mighty fallen, you know?
Are putting in PlayStation Plus the monthly stuff for January.
Yeah,
Like, and then Multiverses just I the fact that the game was better in the beta than it is in its official release is crazy to me.
yeah,
And that fell off the face serious. Like, I we I could tell. I guess I played Multiverses a little bit when it came back. But I could tell within like a couple days that this game was not going to last. Like, I don't want to. I'm like, oh, cool, new game, and then just sort of tapering off of it. Um, it's not going to hold, and it will be shut down eventually again,
yeah,
and it's not
yeah,
for good, which is sad because I like the idea of it, but I somehow they fucked it up the beyond the beta's okay niche. So, and then MK1, like, we have Terry Bogard in the Street Fighter 6 pass and with my um so but still those are very fighting game specific characters. So not a whole wide appeal. Who does Mortal Kombat get? Homelander, Omni Man. They have Conan the Barbarian,
Ghostface.
Ghostface. Mainstream characters. doesn't do a dent. Like this is the game that's supposed to be popular with casuals, and they're moving over to Street Fighter and Tekken.
Yep.
Like this, you failed the one thing Mortal Kombat was good at. I, I I'm concerned about NetherRealm right now because I know how
Yeah.
WB is desperate for money. I
Yeah.
don't think it's NetherRealm's fault, but they're under a shitty publisher. But the fact that they during the PS4 generations they were alternating every 2 years for games. So it went MK9 Justice, MK10 Justice 2, MK11. Then they stopped. There was a 4 year gap between 11 and 1, and they skipped Injustice entirely. Went just double back from Mortal Kombat to Mortal Kombat. I, I don't know what they're gonna do after this. After Mortal Kombat just blew up in their face.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they try an Injustice again, or maybe they just go back. They hit Mortal Kombat again. You think that you'd have to think that because they skipped out on Injustice 3, it's because they wanted money from Mortal Kombat. Because obviously Mortal Kombat sells better than Injustice. Um, so yeah, no. WB is quickly finding itself amongst the worst publishers list. I think I have more respect for EA at this present moment than I do WB.
Yeah,
And
not by
that's
much.
saying something.
Well, speaking of which, let's talk about EA.
Yes, yes, let's. So in addition to all of the sports games, EA, FC, Madden, um, F1, NHL, and then of course they brought back EA Sports College Football.
True.
They did have Dragon Age: The Veilguard. They also had Tales of Kenzera Zhao, which is like a smaller game based around like African culture. And then they also had Plants vs Zombies 3 published this year. So this is a hard one. I love Dragon Age Veilguard. I think it's cool that they're highlighting something like Tales of Kenzera. They're also the publisher for all of Haze Lights games, and we have a great one coming out this year. I disagree with you with the B tier. I think C tier. I think Dragon Age pulls all those sports games up by itself, but I do not think it belongs in a B tier.
No, because of college football. That was a genius play. I had.
I mean, yes.
I mean,
And
we don't care
I've
about
heard
sports games.
from some friends that do play them that the quality of college football was like 10 times better than Madden.
Yeah, I mean the sports games are slop. They've been that for a while. But the college football game was a thing, and we don't care about sports games at all. But they are part of the industry, and college football has been wanted back for 10 plus years. And the fact that they create a satisfying product for that, I don't. They didn't really have anything I could call like a misstep this year. The thing that made me mad, honestly, the most about them this year was they didn't want to do another Dead Space game.
Yeah, that's true.
Like all in all, I mean,
The normal steps that they made them normally, and any
yeah,
new steps they made were fairly successful.
yeah. I can't say they've been bad when they have had a fairly successful year. Me putting them in B tier is the sports games dragging them down.
I mean,
I feel like I could flip my argument for A tier, but I don't see
yeah,
I don't think there's enough justifies. They haven't done enough justifiably bad to bring them in below than to me B tier.
yeah, I agree. I agree. I will acquiesce. I think they belong in C tier, but you putting them at the bottom of B tier, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. I think that's fine. I think that's fine. Let's do Epic Games. I feel like that one's a little bit smaller because you've got Fortnite. I don't know what else they've really published this year, other than just continuing success in Fortnite.
Yeah, that's all they really did. I mean, they still published the uh like 2 DLC, but I mean, I don't really know what else they've done. I think more of a C. Just kind of they really didn't do a whole lot this year. And I personally, I mean, I thought the Chapter 6 launch was pretty good for Fortnite. That's really what they're focusing on for them. But Chapter 5 as a whole, which I think it was obviously most of the year, meh. Even the Chapter 2 remix, the event was pretty cool, but the season itself was meh. So I I feel like they were just had a very ho hum year.
I mean, I agree. I mean, you're the Epic Games expert here, so I know we know in 2023 they helped publish Alan Wake 2.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I think just this year it's just pretty much Fortnite and continued success around that.
I think they're C tier.
Okay, I agree with you on that one. Let's do one that's close to my heart. Let's do Square. Let's get Square out of the way so I can mull a little bit. So let's talk some Square Enix, right? So this year, I think has been a pretty good year. So we're gonna talk about it. So Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Fantasian Neo Dimension, which is so underrated and more people should check out, especially if you like classic Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail, Dragon Quest III HD 2D, Visions of Mana, which was developed by NetEase but published by Square Enix here in the States. Life is Strange Double Exposure, um, Final Fantasy 16's DLC, which neither of us have played and probably should, and Saga Emerald Beyond. That's a fucking killer ass year. I
They also had
personally. Oh, go
they
ahead.
also had foam stars.
They also had Foam Stars,
That was a
which I don't believe is closing down yet.
yet.
So
Yeah.
it is still running.
At the time
I
recording it, I'm not saying about shutting it down.
yes.
Unless we've just
I
missed that announcement.
I personally think they belong in A tier below Bandai Namco. Here's why. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth nominated for Game of the Year.
Yeah.
Uh,
My
Dragon
here's my
Quest III HD is beautiful. I've played a little bit of Visions of Mana. It's pretty solid. Shame that NetEase closed the studio down. You're playing a little bit of Life is Strange Double Exposure, and it hasn't been too bad.
I want to play like the first like hour or half of it.
Well, I know, but you're not appalled by it right out of the gate.
No, no.
I'm playing through Fantasia Neo Dimension right now and love it. So I think this was a pretty banner year for them.
I agree. The problem is, does Square Enix think it was a banner year for them? Because that's the problem with Square Enix.
Well, Square Enix isn't on this call.
Because yeah, Square Enix, I think they might think they had an F tier year.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know what
I
the
would
what.
imagine that Square Enix thinks that they have an F tier year. I understand being a little bit disappointed in the sales of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, just a little bit. But it did come out at a pretty crowded time of the year. Like the early part of this year had Infinite Wealth, Persona 3 Reload, Dragon's Dogma 2. Like there's a lot coming out at the early part of this year. So I think Square Enix, if they want more sales out of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, obviously it's a successful series. I think they just need to position it in a way to be successful. Um, the early part of the January, February, March are becoming kind of the new October, November. And developers, I think, are underestimating that a little bit because I'm playing through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I know we usually start these episodes talking about what we're playing, but I figured we'd just jump into the tier list since that's the point of the show this time. But I am playing through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I am trying to get it finished before our year end lists. I took a small deviation to blast out Astrobot, but now I'm like full steam ahead on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and like I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I do think it's a little dense, and I do have some complaints, but like it's still a solid game. So I personally think Square Enix, it's an A year for them. They had some great releases, some very highly scored releases, and a Game of the Year nominee.
I agree for the most part. On paper, they did. It's just my concern is just how Square's gonna act.
Yes.
Like they shouldn't be acting. They should be acting like they had an A tier year, and they're not, which is concerning.
Yeah. Especially considering too, like me as a Final Fantasy fan, it is my favorite franchise, and so this is 2 years in a row that Final Fantasy games have came out that Square Enix themselves have been disappointed in, and so that concerns me a little bit. I don't think Final Fantasy is going away. I don't think it ever will,
No,
but
no.
it does concern me for when new ones get developed, how they're going to approach them.
Yeah.
So
They need to get their expectations in check.
yes. Let's do Konami next. So
I mean,
obviously we had the Silent Hill 2 remake. There was a couple other ones though. Castlevania Dominus Collection featuring all 3 DS games. I was super hyped for that because I didn't think that was going to happen. So that's really awesome. They also had a Contra Operation Galaga. Um, so a new Contra game. And then obviously Silent Hill Short Message. And then the Silent Hill 2 remake. Um, so yeah, Konami's back. It's nice to
I mean,
see.
I heard one of the Silent Hill it wasn't two remake. I thought one of the Silent Hill projects they did wasn't good at all.
It was the short message.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's see. I mean, I don't want to say they're back just yet, just because like I want to see a consistent pattern. But
they're back making games and publishing games.
we'll see. We'll see how long it holds. I think B's okay for them.
I was gonna say C, honestly, because their
See?
only their only kind of like successful thing that wasn't a port was was Silent Hill 2.
Okay, I'll put
And
them in
so
C.
even though that was everybody thought that was going to be bad and it ended up not being bad, that's still the only thing that they really had. So
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'll put them in C above Epic.
I think I agree with that. Who do you want to do next?
Let's do. Did Take Two do anything this year besides 2K?
Let's find out. So they did have WWE 2K. They did
Yeah.
have NBA 2K. Um, and that's pretty much it. Let me just double check here. Yeah, I'm thinking that's just it.
So just two sports games. Yeah, because Borderlands in development.
Yeah, Borderlands is in development. Grand Theft Auto 6 in development.
New Bioshock. Yeah, they didn't do a whole lot. Damn. Uh, shit. I always want to
I'd
put them
put
in
them in
D.
the D tier. I think that's fair. They didn't have any colossal flops.
But they didn't do anything either way. I
They
mean,
didn't
for a
do
company
anything
that
either.
size, that's surprising.
Yeah. I feel like you should have some colossal flops to be F. But yeah, D,
Yeah.
they just didn't do anything, but the games that they did release, I'm sure sold fine. So
I mean, they're just a normal sport game slop. I mean, even Capcom, despite they not doing a whole lot, they were still releasing ports of stuff.
yeah,
So Take Two did nothing.
yeah.
Yeah, that's D tier it is then. All right, well,
Uh, you going to do
go ahead.
Riot?
Yeah, so you know right better, so I will defer.
Okay, so um, we had Bandle League of Legends story, which is like Animal Crossing but with the Yordles. We also finally got the fucking Project L 2XKO this year. Um, League of Legends was fine this year. TFT was fine this year. Um, I
You had
think
that.
I think
You
I
had
think a low B. I think a low B is fine.
so you had the faker stuff with the
Yeah,
$500.
yeah.
And didn't they shut down Forge this year?
Yes, they did shut down Forge this year. Yes. Um.
So
Yeah, definitely thinking low B, high C. Let's just put him in low B because this year's World Finals was good. The game over League of Legends, the game overall is in a solid place. Granted, they're about to just do the season refresh, so jury's out in 2025. But 2XKO, both of us played it. We both liked it. Um, when the fuck's it gonna release? Nobody fucking knows. Um, and yeah, so I think that's a fine place for him. I think it's a fine place for him. Sad to see that we won't get any more Riot Forge stuff because that stuff was really high quality. But they also
yeah.
did Arcane this year, and I really can't fault Arcane. Yeah. Let's do NetEase. NetEase is a good one next because
Okay.
they didn't really have a whole lot. Obviously, Marvel Rivals is NetEase. So excited for fucking. Oh, they published that. Oh, that's
What?
gonna help them out. The Shadows of the Dam remastered. If you've never played Shadows of the Dam, it's a Suda 51 game, and it's so good, so underrated. So check that out. They also did Where Winds Meet and Once Human. I've never played either of those games, but Marvel Rivals puts them pretty high, and Shadows of the Dam puts them pretty high. I don't think it's A tier though. I think they're the highest of the B tier because essentially we're crediting them
Well,
for Marvel Rivals
yeah.
only.
I mean, that's the big one is Marvel Rivals, and it's gonna have a lasting impact. So yeah, I
Hold
think
on,
Hype Beast's
let me
fine.
hold on, let me check the Steam DB on Marvel Rivals real quick. Friend of friend of the show,
Steam
checking
DB.
in on Marvel Rivals. Or yeah, or it's
I
the
was,
Steam DB. Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I was playing some earlier. I played a bunch last night. I have a Mean Squirrel Girl.
I have seen that you've been playing Squirrel Girl a lot. I've got to mean everything. And allegedly they're buffing Venom for next season, so
Cloak and Dagger, which
y'all
is like,
fucked.
yeah, because
Players
those
right
two
now 387,000. 24-hour peak 426,000.
a month after launch, and they're still that high.
Yeah, yep. They haven't
I mean,
quite hit their all-time peak, but being at
no,
426,000 when your peak is 481,000 is still crazy.
yeah, that's nothing that ain't nothing to sneeze at. That's a normal drop
Nah,
off.
that's everybody's fucking dream right there. That's what that
Yeah,
is. All right, let's
yeah,
get
there.
Embracer Group out of the way so we can talk about. I think
Last,
I think
the big,
the remaining three are gonna have the most discussion.
yeah.
Okay, so Embracer Group 2024. They did do the Legacy Kane Soul Reavers remasters, which is appreciated. They fucked up Star Wars Battlefront, which is crazy to me because that should have been the easiest slam dunk this year.
Easy cash.
Like, god damn. I can't find a definitive list here. It was Payday 3 this year, or was it 2024, or was it 2023?
I think it was this year.
Hold on,
And also, I mean, they're just
Google's not
shutting
giving
down.
me the Google's not giving me the answers that I want.
And also, they're just shutting down studios left and right because they got too big too quickly. Like, I mean, we can pound more on that in the next podcast, which we will.
Yes.
Um, but as a case in point, dear God, like they are hemorrhaging talent. And then besides the Legacy of Kane port, I mean, does it have anything
Oh, I
good?
guess Dead Island 2 was this year.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not a bad one. That's not a bad one at all.
Yeah, that one did
Eh,
okay.
I'm thinking at best low C. At best. I could also argue just D tier. I think is where they probably should go.
Yeah, my thing is like, how do you fuck up the Star Wars Battlefront? Like that should just be two two ports that are so easy to not fuck up. They also had the Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 remasters. They had Star Wars Battlefront remaster, which was really good. So yeah, they just did a whole bunch of ports this year for the most part.
And then
But
hemorrhage.
I do credit them for doing Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remaster because like those games are fucking sick and
I
definitely
feel I,
do not get enough credit.
I feel like that's what's keeping them out of F tier.
That's fair. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Fucking Legacy of Kane. Those games. I hope they do a remaster of the Legacy of Kane games as well, so I can have the whole collection. And I hope. I mean, what's Crystal Dynamics working on right now? Fucking nothing, right? Making a Soul Reaver game.
I think they're working on another Tomb Raider game.
Well, that's fine then, I guess. But after that, do either a new Gex game or a new Soul Reaver game.
That would be nice. So hopefully they
I
survive
think a
long
new
enough.
Gex game would be so fucking cool. Like, because Gex has that self-referential humor, like that's based on like pop culture and shit. So you could just go field day since there hasn't been one in 25 years. You know?
Yeah.
Okay, Sony, Sega, and Xbox. One of these, in my opinion, is an S tier. One of
I think
them is a B tier, and one of them is possibly another B tier, plus maybe an A tier.
so. Let's put Sega in the middle, and let's have the two publishers. One go first, one goes last. Who you want to go first? Then.
Let's do Xbox first.
Okay.
So, I'll be honest. I think Xbox had a pretty okay year.
Yeah, we're including Activision and Bethesda in this. They
Yes.
are all part of Xbox. Um,
So, this year was a pretty big year. So, they had Microsoft Flight Simulator, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, Age of Mythology Retold, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, the Diablo 4 DLC, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, the Starfield DLC. Um, I think that's it.
I mean, I think Xbox is in a weird spot because that's a solid list for the most part. Honestly, if kind of a beating
Oh,
dead
and
horse,
Stalker 2. Stalker 2.
not bad. Um, and the biggest issue with Xbox, um, it's a tale of two halves. If we're looking at them just as a third party publisher, A tier. Like honestly, I could argue for S tier. Honestly,
I wouldn't, but
but A
I
tier.
think
If we're
yeah,
gonna, but if we're looking at them as a platform holder, because they are cratering.
yeah, yeah.
So that's their biggest issue. Uh, because they're if and unlike say Sony, where we have no qualms. We know they're a first party platform holder first and foremost. So we're not separating those two instances from each other. Xbox is splitting in two almost.
Yeah.
Um, so as I said, they're if as a third party publisher, I think they're doing pretty good. They just need to kind of push on the gas for that, honestly. And honestly, if they're going to be a third party publisher, they're not fully pressing on with that. That kind of brings them to B tier. I think that's where they should go as B tier.
Yeah, I think they should
Um,
go probably ahead of Capcom because they did release a couple more things this year. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's why they landed the B tier is because as a platform holder, they're fucking struggling. Third party publishing, they're doing pretty well. I mean, Sea of Thieves hit 1 million players on PlayStation pretty quickly this year. Um,
console like
I've played a
hotcakes
little
as
bit of
always.
Indiana Jones. It's pretty solid. I'd like to finish it before the year's end. Well, before our video. Um, but there have been bumps. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 reviewed okay, didn't sell well. Starfield Shattered Space fucking did not do well. Stalker 2 did fairly well. There was problems with Microsoft Flight Simulator. So everything that Microsoft is kind of doing is coming with some asterisks. The biggest one being will they won't they with publishing. I'm sure that Xbox next when they do their Q4 earnings report or whatever, I'm sure that most of their revenue excuse me is going to come from PlayStation and PC over Xbox. I bet you more people got Indiana Jones on Steam or played it on their PC versus an Xbox.
I mean, that's possible. We know with COD, like that's absolutely the case. The more people play it on Steam and PlayStation
Yeah.
versus Xbox Game Pass, probably helped a little bit, but earlier reports are saying that it's not sustaining anything.
Yeah.
Um, so I know it's a couple people who essentially demoed the game on Steam on Game Pass. I mean, and then bought it on Steam. Like
Yeah.
I don't really understand what you get out of it. I mean, you get some money because you own the Call of Duty now, but in terms of helping Game Pass itself, I don't see how that helps.
It doesn't. It doesn't help.
Uh, so they're It's almost right now they're doing one step forward, one step back, and not going anywhere. And their issues are they're not going anywhere just because you gotta pick a lane, buddy. You
Yeah.
gotta pick a lane.
I wonder if Game Pass will still be the way that it is. I wonder if it'll even go up in price to sustain better, or if they just dissolve it completely as they
Uh,
start approaching this third party model.
I I think it will. I think eventually it will be dissolved.
Yeah,
Um, I think it's gonna go up in price and continue to go up in price. Because apparently there's reports that internally now with Microsoft, I mean, before there's no red lines, and like they I mean no red lines. Everything at this point is at timed exclusive at best.
yeah.
I mean, there's reports that Gears of War E Day is going to be launched day and date. Like,
Which we've discussed on the show before. What a perfect title to make your PlayStation debut. It's a prequel, so like, what
yeah,
a perfect
it
title.
makes sense. It makes sense. It's just like,
And then
y'all,
then you have the ability to re-release all the old ones and make more money off of them by introducing them to a new platform with very little development costs because you're essentially at that point just changing icons. So yeah, I think
I
it's the future. Um, let's go ahead and do Sega now. Sega S tier.
I wasn't even questioning it. It was the only S tier on the list. Only
Yeah,
S tier on the list. They didn't miss a bonus.
let's look at Sega's fucking year.
Fair
Like,
year.
talk about a glow up.
Publisher of the year, easily. Not even a
Publisher
con.
of the year for sure. It's not even, and I don't even think it's close. I think
No, it's
there is
not
a
close.
huge ass gap between Sega and Bandai Namco, and
There is.
it's really not on the back of too many games. They were just really high fucking quality games. So the year starts off with Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, fucking still front runner for my game of the year. Then you had the fantastic Persona 3 Reload, which is a remake of a very successful Persona game. It's fantastic. I love that game. It will be featured on my top 10 list. I can promise you that. You had Unicorn Overlord, the latest from Vanillaware, that all accounts did pretty well. I haven't finished it, but it's pretty good. The art style is very, very pleasing. And then they kind of sit and wait, lie in wait under the surface until October when
No,
back
no,
to back.
you're missing one. You're missing Shin Megami Tensei 5
Oh
in
yeah, that's
June.
right. I forgot. Shin Megami Tensei 5 came out over the summer, and people did think it was an upgrade over Shin Megami Tensei, the original version of it.
And
Uh,
it released unlike the original version only released on Switch. Vengeance released on all platforms, so Steam just got their hands on it, so it did super well
yeah,
on that platform.
and then they just lied under the surface until October, and then they emerge with 2 million unit sellers in the first day of release. Metaphor and Sonic Cross Shadow Generations, like fucking crazy. That fucking crazy for Metaphor to do 1 million units in one day. Um, because basically new IP from the Persona studio, of course, but still new IP sells 1 million units in a day. And then I think it was like 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, Sonic Cross Shadow repeats it to another 1 million units sold in a single day.
That little hedgehog is going through a renaissance right now. I'll tell you what. I mean,
Yes,
that
he is.
he was a mascot of that company. There was a time where we're all like, maybe he should not be the mascot of the company. No, no, he's fine. Keep him the mascot. Because there's also Sonic 3 just released last month, beat Mufasa at the US box office. So took down a giant of Disney, and I got to see Sonic 3. Uh, Small review for it. It honestly might be the best video game movie ever made. It has its issues. It's corny, but it's Sonic. But like, I mean, in terms of movies wise, there's not a lot of the good video game stuff has been turned to television shows.
Yeah.
You know, like Last of Us, Arcane, Fallout. Movie wise, it's really just Sonic hanging out right now and Mario. Um, Sonic 3 is the best Sonic movie. It's incredible. Like a lot of the issues maybe people have with the human characters, taking up too much screen time, stuff like that. Yeah, that's practically gone. Like, there's like one scene where Sonic's parents are like sneaking into Gun, and it's like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like the movie starts and it hits the gas and just does not let up.
Yeah.
Slight spoilers: they do play Live and Learn.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, so they go nuts. They announced Sonic 4 the day Sonic 3 releases. Um, and they I mean they were that confident in it, and I mean the end credits. They had 2 end credit scenes.
Damn.
Yeah, no, they confident. Do you care if I
Sega's
spoil
the
the end credit?
MCU. What the fuck?
No, no, no. Straight up, they took the Marvels like end credit glory and stole it from them.
Oh Jesus
Because
Christ.
like, do you want me to tell you what the end credits were? If
We'll do it off camera for anybody that still hasn't seen the movie.
Okay, okay. But yeah, no, it's like it, just so much hype out of those things. So yeah, they're on top of the world right
Yeah.
now.
I mean, and like all of the things that I mentioned, all the games that we mentioned, all have like above 85 on Metacritic. Like all of it has been really high quality stuff.
I mean,
Met
Metaphor's a
third
front runner for
highest
both.
rated thing, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Tur- Metaphor's a front runner for both our games of the year.
Yes.
It was if it would have won at the Game Awards over Astrobot, no one would have said anything. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and arguably, Like a Dragon and Persona 3 Reload were kind of gypped out of
Yes.
nominations.
Yes.
So they were good enough to be nominated.
Yes. I
So having
cannot express how much I love Infinite Wealth. Like it's so like
yeah.
I even had a flashback to Infinite Wealth just the other day. So I played through the Costa del Sol part of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and
Mhm.
they have these like segways that you could ride on, and I'm like, the Segway in fucking Infinite Wealth controlled better. So on Segway physics alone, Infinite Wealth beats out Rebirth.
And and also they announced a new Virtual Fighter.
Yes. Yep.
So I mean,
And
they have
Sega has all of those remakes that they announced in 20, I think was it last, it was Game Awards 2023. Crazy Taxi, Jet Set
yeah.
Radio, those kind of remakes they announced are still on their way too. So like Sega has extremely bright future ahead of them, and this year has just been really a culmination of like so
The
much good shit.
Yeah. I
Like
mean,
fucking Kiryu and Persona were carrying Sega for a pretty long time, and now Sonic is back carrying his weight, and so now Sega is firing literally on all cylinders.
yeah, kind of back to also the game wise of Sonic. I mean, Sonic Generations is also just a fantastic game.
Yeah.
But it was a bright spot during Sonic's down period. But Shadow Generations is misnamed. I'll say it is. Its fault. It takes place during like the Shadow Generation story, but it's really Shadow Frontiers. But what's nice about it is Sonic Team has always they always didn't refine their ideas. They always just kept having new ideas and throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Shadow Frontiers is just a refinement of Sonic Frontiers, which is already a great formula to have. So the fact that they're also taking the right steps and making sure they're refining what works. I mean, yeah, they, they have RGGs is just a workhorse for them.
Yeah,
Their
they are.
their,
Jesus.
their their mascots, back on top, and then Atlas just churning out these award-winning games nonstop. Like,
Yeah. Because RGG is the one that's working on a new they're working on a new Yakuza game
mhm.
apparently, and they're the ones that are doing Virtual Fighter. So,
Yeah, they're doing Virtua Fighter. They're working on the new Yakuza Pirate game. They're definitely working on on Yakuza 9.
yeah.
And then they have that new project that looks like Yakuza, but it isn't
Yeah.
Yakuza. Project Century, I think it was called.
Yeah, it's Project
Yeah,
Century.
like these guys are just they are
They're Insomniac Studios but in Japan.
yeah. So yeah, no, there was no question who was coming out on top of this list.
Yeah.
I think we both knew it before we even started
When
discussion.
I came up with this idea, I knew that Sega was going to be on the top. Yeah.
Same thing. As soon as you pitched me the idea, I'm thinking Sega's number one.
Yeah. It's just crazy the year that they've had, and by God do they deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk. I think Sony's
Last,
probably the most contentious one.
last but not least, let's see.
So
They
Sony
they
this
had
year,
they had their ups and they had their downs. They
yes,
won Game of the Year. They also had Concord.
yes. So the aforementioned Astrobot, Helldivers 2. Um, you also had,
They published Rise of the Ronin at where how that deals with it.
yeah, they
They had
also had,
they had exclusivity with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah,
Um,
but they didn't. I mean, they didn't publish it though. They just had
no.
marketing rights and exclusivity.
But since I feel like Sony, unlike Microsoft, actually unifies their publishing and first party platform stuff, I'm looking more as a first party system
Yeah,
like Nintendo. And so I feel like getting the exclusivity does count in their favor.
fair.
Um,
They
it may hurt
have,
Square, but it doesn't hurt Sony.
yeah.
Um,
They
it's
Stellar
like Stellar
Blade
Blade.
as well. So yeah, Hell. So original stuff: Helldivers 2, Rise of the Ronin, Stellar Blade, Concord, Astrobot, and I guess maybe you throw in Lego Horizon Adventures. I think that was
Yeah,
published by Sony.
yeah.
And then the rest of the stuff that year was all ports. So you had Last of Us Part 2 remastered coming to PS5. You had MLB The Show. I guess that one's a new one too. Horizon Forbidden West coming to Windows. Ghost
Oh,
of Tsushima coming to Windows. God of War Ragnarok coming to Windows. Until Dawn remaster coming to PS5 and Windows. The Horizon Zero Dawn upgrade
really?
coming to PS5 and Windows. And yeah, that's it.
I mean, they sold a lot of PlayStations this year. They had the PS5 Pro, which was expensive, but also sold well.
Yeah.
So they had the PlayStation Portal, which everyone thought was useless, but sold well.
Yes.
I they
This is
had
a
their
hard one. This is a hard one because
they took some lumps this year. I would say they took those some lumps.
yeah, because I mean the you have the elephant in the room is the unmitigated disaster that's Concord. Like we're
Yeah,
talking $400 million loss,
I don't think
which
it's
is
that.
worse. Well, it could be up to $400 million loss.
Yeah, but I think it was more like 200, 250, which is still a lot, but I don't think it was 400. The math to me on that number doesn't math.
I still
Um,
think it's more than 250 million though lost.
that doesn't make much sense. But irregardless, I mean, yeah, Concord is their biggest lump they got this year.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's as big a deal people make it because I mean, how often does Sony miss?
Well, no, I mean, but in the confines of this year, it is a
Oh,
huge miss. I mean, it's a bigger miss than Suicide Squad was.
yeah. I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying I don't like on WB's case. It was a string of misses. Then Suicide Squad was just continuing that,
Yeah,
and there is momentum with the YWB. Sony, this is one off. I don't think Concord's much. I don't think, and they've already said they're changing plans. They're not going to make as many live service games. They're going to make sure that when they do them, they're going to make sure that there's more quality control. So it doesn't seem like they're just going to like WB even after Suicide Squad flop. It stated they want more live services. So it's like let's try and fix some things. We're also focused on more what people want us from us.
oh, yeah,
So
yeah. And I'm
they
not
don't
saying
seem
that Sony belongs in F tier. I'm not saying anything crazy like that, but I do think that we need to weigh Concord's failure similarly to how we're weighing Suicide Squad failures, and we do need to. That means that Sony needs to be pulled down a couple spots. I think personally, Sony maybe goes at the like lowest of the B tier because yes, you did have Astrobot, which is fantastic. I cannot sing its praises enough.
I
Winning
don't
game of the
think
year, huge.
I don't
But
think I agree with you on B tier. I don't think it should be low on B tier. I
okay,
think they should be there. I mean,
I mean, I guess
I
they did
argue
have a game of the year nominee.
and a winner.
Yeah, and a winner.
And again, Concord flopped. I'm not arguing saying it didn't, but they have a list of other successes comparatively. Um, that Concord is dragging them down. I don't think it drags them down that much because everything else offsets it. Whereas WB had nothing to offset Suicide Squad. It was just failure after failure after failure.
Fair.
One failure. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna knock him down that much for one. After how long has it been since they had a flop?
Fair. Fair. Um, I suppose so. I suppose because none of the rest of the tier had a game of the year nominee.
No, I could even almost say this, but I don't know. I'm not saying A because I do think Concord knocks them out of A.
Yeah,
If Concord didn't exist, then to me it's undebatable that they're an A.
yeah,
But I think Concord does knock them into B.
yeah.
Um, but I don't see. I mean, Astrobot. I mean, a week later, after Concord shuts down, Astrobot rises from Concord's ashes and is just amazing.
It is amazing. Um, it is so much fun. So much fun. My only gripe with it is sometimes the hit detection on the fucking frog gloves can be a little wonky,
Mhm.
and the fact that Spider-Man was a DLC rescue
Not
really
me.
kind of irked me. But then they made up for it because Miles and Peter were both there, so you know.
Yeah. Um, I mean, even with Concord, they also had Helldivers, and Helldivers was a runaway success.
Yes.
A success no one thought was coming. Um, so I think they did pretty well there. Um, and the console business is doing fine. Like I don't want
Yeah.
to say that everyone's acting like it's doom and gloom on the console front, but they're doing fine. They estimates are around they've sold like 4 to 5 million consoles in November. 20% of which were pros.
Yeah.
So they're hovering around 80 million PS5 sold. I don't. I've said before. I think there's a little bit of a hate boner with Sony right now
Yeah.
for a lot of things. I don't think it's justified. There are things to criticize them for. I don't think, but I think people have taken it too far. And realistically, they're not as bad as people make them out to be. Don't trust them. They're not your friend, but I think for the most part they're okay.
Yeah. I will acquiesce and say that Sony goes there. I guess maybe I'm just a little bit harsher on them because, like, admittedly, this was a little bit of a light year from Sony.
Was. It
Uh,
was. I mean,
but
it their normal the normal Sony shtick of their cinematic type of game. Nothing this year. No God of War. No Horizon. Nothing. But it said Astrobot was a kind of a return to form for them. That I've said before, when they make a 3D platformer, they don't miss. They just
yeah,
rarely do it.
yeah,
Um, so Astrobot being good, Helldivers being good, Stellar Blade being good, they're still kicking around. They just
yeah. I will say though, they need to have a pretty big 2025 though if they want to continue
yeah
moving PS5 Pros.
yeah. I mean, they have Ghost of Yote coming up this year.
Yes,
Um, depends on what their other studios are doing. They may I could see them still having a lower year this year just because of GTA 6. I'm going, you know what, we're gonna give our dev teams extra time because I ain't gonna sacrifice my games for that. Because
yeah, but I
my
hope that
bet,
they are preparing contingencies in case GTA 5 does not come out this year because there's a huge possibility that it's going to get
true,
delayed.
true. Although I would imagine Sony has marketing rights for GTA 6, so they're kind of probably have more knowledge of when that thing's gonna be done than most do, unless they're Take Two themselves. Um, and I guarantee once the marketing for GTA 6 kicks into high gear and they slap on a let's play this game on PS5 Pro, those things are gonna start selling like crazy.
Yeah, you're probably right. I hope we see just a little bit more out of them this year, though, just in general.
Yeah, I want to showcase. Like, I'm sorry, like we are. I will say we are at the halfway point. I'm not of the opinion that I only want to know about games released 6 months from now. I know at this point, show me the rest of the map for PS5. You know, if this generation lasts 8 years because COVID extends the normal cycle out a little bit, I don't care. Let me know what's coming out in 27, 20. I don't give a shit.
I I don't want that. I'd say maybe a year and a half max out. Don't
Mm,
don't get me excited and then don't fulfill those promises type thing, you know? So show me what you got coming out this year. Show me what you're looking at. It's 2026 for
Yeah,
sure, but
yeah. I mean,
2027 is probably far off.
I would like to see news about
Wolverine.
Wolverine, or Venom. If they're making a Venom game, they really should
Yeah.
be making a Venom game. Um, so they still got stuff in the tank. It said it was a lighter year, and had some lumps. I it's I don't think Sony's of the mindset like WB is, where WB put a looter shooter, and they're probably thinking, "Well, we failed this time, but we can do it again." I think Sony realized they put their hand on the stove, got burned, and are actually taking the lessons from that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we'll see though, because I mean, uh, Marathon is possibly next year from
True.
Bungo.
True. Although Bungie, I mean, Bungie is a mess, and I wish they kind of didn't buy them. But Bungie making live services, that's just what Bungie does. So, kind of
Yeah,
a, I'm not expecting Bungie to start turning into a normal like Sony ass studio.
yeah, fair enough. Well, this is our tier list. I think that it's pretty good. I think maybe one can say we were a little bit forgiving since a lot of them landed in the B tier, but I think that I think that it's pretty solid. Let us know in the comments. Do you agree? Where would you have put certain other publishers? Was there any publishers that we missed? We left off a lot of like the indie ones and stuff because there's just so many and so many small ones. We kind of just went with the AAA ones for the most part. But let us know if there's somebody that we missed that you think deserves to be on there, and let us know where they would go. Um, there's just so many self-published indie games that we'd be here all day if we put the indie games on there. So I think it's a pretty good list. What about you?
I'm I'm satisfied where everything landed. I think this is pretty accurate with the game industry's at. A lot of people say the game industry is, going down and is unhealthy spot. I don't think this shows unhealthy. This just shows a lull gear.
Yeah, not
Which
every
w-
year can be 2018 or 2023. Like
no.
you got to have some down years.
Yeah, and this is one of them. But I mean, Sega in the down years, Sega was there.
Yep, Sega lifted us up when we needed
Yeah.
them most.
Yeah.
The hero that we
So
never knew we needed.
the hero that we thought left us, he has returned.
Praise be upon him, for he is Sonic.
Yeah.
Um, but awesome. So yeah, and so next episode is going to be looking at 2023 as a whole. Get prepared to talk about some layoffs because there was a lot of them. So
Yeah. Well, 2024 as a whole. 23
2024 as
we
a
already,
whole. Sorry,
we
sorry.
we did the 2023 episode, a year
Yes, you're
ago.
right. Yes, yeah. It's 2025 now, and my brain hasn't adjusted. So, thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe to the video if you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video; it helps us out. And we will see you in a couple weeks to talk about 2024 and all of the fucking layoffs.
Adios.